Hello and welcome to today's session. My name is Henry. If you're not following our YouTube page, please do well to follow. We are releasing a lot of videos within the course of the year, and I wouldn't want you to miss any of our SAP material management and integration into finance videos. Please go ahead and set your notifications so that when we drop those videos, you'll be the first to know. And thank you for watching. In today's session, we're going to be covering a very important topic. This is one of the topics that is most likely touched in your day in the life as an SAP consultant. And in most interviews, companies these days are looking for consultants who have very good understanding of exchange rates, currency setting, and accounting principles configuration. I know when you hear accounting, you think that has to do with finance, but as SAP Material Management Consultants, we are highly integrated with finance. So we need to have a very good knowledge about the basics. But in this session, we are not going to only cover the basics. I'm going to show you exactly what you need to do. And this would enhance your knowledge and give you more confidence during the interview and how you can support the business. So the transaction code FINCI_ledger is the transaction code that covers everything that has to do with the ledger and accounting principles configurations. And then I'm going to take you through other slides and other transaction codes that we're going to be looking at for the currency settings. Now, when you open up to this screen, it gives you a display message like this with all the different accounting principles and allocation indicators and so on and so forth for the different company codes that has been set up into FINCI_ledger. You just want to click continue. And when we go here to the currency types, click continue. You just want to make sure that you have 00 currency valuation type available, the one for 10 and also the one for 30. So this one has to do with document currency, and this one has to do with the company code currency, and last but not the least, this one has to do with the group currency. This already by default SAP system has already been maintained. If you do not have this within your SAP system, you can go ahead and click the new entries and make sure that you have those three options. Those three options are the ones that are frequently used, and this is standard by SAP. Of course, if the business needs that you create another one, you can always use the Z or the Y to be able to create it. And mind you, if you do not have access to an SAP system and you're looking for a means to have an access to the SAP system where you can use for your training, for your practice, alongside supporting the business, do well to reach out to me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn account is Henry Ocon, and I can share the details on how you can go about getting an SAP system. And by the way, the system we're using here is the latest version of the SAP system. Here, if you go to systems and go to status, and if we go here into the license expires on details, and if you go to the installed product version, you can see the version that we're using, which is SAP Fiori for SAP S/4HANA 2023. So let me know if you're interested in having access to this system. All right, so after this, you want to go to the global currency conversion settings, and here you can see those parameters that are already maintained, which we do have is 10 is going to be referencing the source currency value of 00, which is the document currency. And here you can also see the exchange rate type, which we're using in the system with standard transaction at average rate. And you can also see the transaction date type, which is transaction date. And also for 30, which has to do with the group currency. So all of these parameters is already maintained by SAP. If you do not have it into your SAP screens, you just want to use the new entries and also follow these exact steps. Now we can go to the currency conversion settings for the company code. And here you can see there are a couple of company codes that's being added for the currency conversion. So this is actually important if your system has currency conversions. If you do not have currency conversions, there's really no need to maintain this information. As you can see, I've maintained for this two company code, but I really do not have any currency conversion for those two company codes. So here, if I go to OBY6, and if I go look for those company codes, US 29 and US 30, one of the things you're going to notice is this is set up for US and the currency is USD. And then also for this other company code, it's US, and then the currency is USD. So really there's no conversion. If what I needed to do was to create, transactions such as stock transport orders where I'm ordering stock, maybe in multiple companies from, one of the company code to the other company code, then I would most likely need to do a currency conversion. Aside from that, there could also be a possibility where the company code would have multiple currencies. Or let's say maybe it wasn't already in USD. Let's say it was in GBP, in Great Britain pound, and I also wanted to have conversions to US dollars, then absolutely you would need to configure this particular screen here for the currency conversion settings for your company code. Okay, and that is what you need to do. I also have another company code that we can also look into. So here, if I go to ZUS1, you can see I also kept this one as a US dollars. I have not created a company code with a different currency. Okay. But now, if I wanted to create a company with a different currency, I would have to, ensure that that step is done. And then you need to also make sure that you maintain that information in here. Okay. If I wanted to add my company code here, US1, the simple steps would just be to enter the company code name. You have to also select the conversion, the, the currency valuation type. In this scenario here, you can keep it as 1-1. Whatever, the business requirement is, you can even keep it at global company currency. And then here you can enter the currency. But in most cases, this would be the conversion, okay? This would be the conversion that you're looking to maintain. Um, Even if I go for USD, my company code is already USD. So the system already knows that my company code is USD. So it's not even going to enter this information. It will probably just blank it out just because it already knows. But let's say, for instance, if I wanted to do a conversion to GBP, then the system will take that into consideration that I'm trying to also add, a different currency conversion from my standard, USD to my GBP. And here, the system is also going to ask me for the source currency type. I can keep it as document currency. So that is where it's going to be pulling from to make the changes for me. And then also I can keep this as a standard transaction rate. And then I can also keep this one here as a transaction date, and he enter on the keyboard. And now you can see that the information has been maintained. So the system now is going to be making the conversions for me. And you can see that because I typed GBP, the system is also showing that it knows that it would have to convert from my USD. And here you can just directly hit save. In most cases, I would always advise I'm saving this into the customizing request, to always use the check entries of the current table views to ensure that everything is looking fine. If I click the back arrow once, you can also now see that the system has maintained the information for my ZUS1 into my evergreen Pharma LLC company code. You can see my global company code currency, and you can see the currency now is being maintained. And you can see where the system is looking at right now. And that's pretty much all you need to do. And real-time conversion also has been checked automatically by the SAP system. And that's the setup that you will need to do from the currency conversion setting for company code standpoint. So Fincy_ledger is a very good transaction code for that. Also, you can go to the ledgers here. You just want to make sure that your leading ledger is already maintained OL. This is the leading ledger, and this is the standard ledger that the system is going to be using. This has more to do with finance, but you just want to make sure that it is there. If it is not there, it just needs to be created, and you can follow these exact steps. And after that, you can also go to the company code settings, but you need to select the leading ledger and go to the company code setting for that ledger and click continue when you open onto the screen. And you just want to make sure that the system is also reflecting all your company codes for your leading ledger. So in this scenario here, I'm just going to enter the company code I just maintained. And you can see that my leading ledger also contains my company code settings for this ledger, which is the US1. And you can see the currency the local currency type, and also the global currency type that the system is picking up in this particular scenario is 1010. And you can also notice that some other ones here are 1030 and so on, right? But where the system is also pulling this from has to do with my material ledger. So I can show you guys that I've already configured my material ledger in a different screen, but we can go here to either OMX3 or we can go to OMX2, okay? But I just want to show you guys. So here I can enter my valuation type to be ZPH. So ZPH is maintained for ZUS1. You can see that it's maintained and activated. For my material ledger currency, I allowed into finance. And then also we can go to OMX2. And within OMX2, you can see that I've maintained my material ledger for this screen and it is 10 and 30. If I select this and go into the define individual characteristics, you can see that we only kept the one for 10, which is for company code currency. And that's exactly the reason why the system is also keeping that as 10. When we go in and look at what 10 is, you can see it's the company code currency, okay? Company code currency as well in the material ledgers, okay? So that's why we also have company code currency over here. All right. I hope this video is helpful. Please, if you're not following my YouTube page, do well to follow my YouTube account just in case you want to know more about SAP. I have been within the SAP landscape for over 10 plus years. I've worked with so many consultants. I've helped different businesses to implement their SAP projects in different life cycles. And I have helped some new SAP beginners get on their way, and now they're SAP consultants. So if you're also interested in learning about how to become an SAP material management consultant, we have a crash 2 months course, and we'll be starting another one in January of 2026. So if you're interested in being a part of that class, do well to reach out to me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn account is Henry Ocon. And please set up your notification bell so once we continue to release different videos, interview-related questions with regards to SAP material management, source to pay, P2P, full end-to-end, and supply chain configurations, you'll be the first to know. All right, and that's pretty much it. Now we can select this and double-click into the accounting principle for the ledger and company code. We don't really need to maintain anything in here, okay? But we can have a look to see what the standard SAP configurations would have looked like. So here, I'm going to go to a separate company code that I created a while ago. I'm going to select this company code here, and I'm going to double click into this, and you can see that the system is going with the account principle of USAP and this USAGAAP, but we don't really need to worry about that. And that's pretty much all we need to do into FinC_ledger. The next transaction code that I'm going to be walking you guys through is going to be the OB08 transaction code. So this transaction code here is a very important transaction code. So let's say, for instance, if it has not been maintained yet for the conversions and your currency exchange rates creation, then you want to come into the screen and make sure that happens. So in this scenario here, you can see that there are so many options. There's conversions that has already been set up from euros to USD, from USD to euros, and so on and so forth. So now I just want to scroll down and look for GBP, or I can click into the position here and then I'll say from currency GBP and hit enter. Actually, let's type that a little bit differently. Let's say GBP. And it doesn't seem like GBP has been maintained. It is possible that it has been maintained, but if it has not been maintained, it is going to be your responsibility as an SAP consultant to configure that. And you can see here that there's so many options of it already being maintained from GBP to euros. So we can scroll down a little bit to see if there's also one that is being maintained from GBP to USD. So it doesn't seem like there's anyone that is being maintained from GBP to USD and vice versa. So what we can do is I can go back to this screen here, okay, and we can go to xe.com. So this is a good website that I can recommend for currency conversions, okay? So you don't even need to log in or do anything. You can just go to the converter and then you can go here to the global currency conversions and you can do your conversions. So in this scenario here, we're going to keep it from US dollars to GBP, Great Britain pound, and we're keeping it for $1 and we can hit convert. And this is what the conversion rate is going to look like for $1. So we can also copy this. SAP allows us to copy up to, I think, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or even up to 6 of these numbers. Okay, so we're going to go with 0.75522. Okay. And now we're going to go back to this screen, but we want to go into the create mode of that screen. Since that screen is currently opening another screen, we will just bring that up here. And now we can click into the new entries. And you also just want to make sure that you're selecting, an exchange rate type, depending on whatever the exchange rate type that you want to use. The business can also always provide that information to you for you to use that information, okay? And you can always copy create from an existing one and just make necessary changes where those changes needs to be made. And here you have your indirect quoted exchange rate, and here you also have your direct quoted exchange rate. So in this scenario, what we can do is we can say we're copying from this one, and then valid from, you're going to use today's date. And your indirect, you can keep that blank if you don't want to make any changes. And then here we can go for conversion from GBP to USD, okay? And then here we can also keep the direct quoted exchange rate and we have to use the exact way the system is keeping it. So we're just going to quickly double check one more time to ensure that we're seeing the numbers. So 755 and 22. So we're going to go for 75522. Hit enter on your keyboard. No exchange rate conversion factors could be found for GBP and USD exchange rate. Do you want to edit manually? So we're going to say maintain. And here the system is going to ask us if we want to use all the same parameters here. And we can say continue. And then here it's asking us to save it instead of customizing request. So you can say something like, and now we can save it into the customizing request. So we have copied and we have made that change. So right here, you can see the one that we just maintained. Okay, so this is your GBP, and this is the exchange rate that we are keeping, which is direct quoted exchange rate. So from GBP to USD, okay? And that's pretty much it. And the data was saved. And you can back out of the screen. So that's what we need to do. Now, the next transaction is going to be for OBA1. OBA1 has to do with the GL account determination for open item exchange rate differences. So you just need to select the one here for the KDF. This is the transaction key that we're going to be paying attention to, okay, for exchange rate difference open item GL account. So here, whenever you double click into that, the system is going to ask for what charts of account, depending on the business scenario. If you are working in a business landscape where they have configured different charts of account, you can use the one that they have provided. Otherwise, in my scenario, I'm using the standard charts of account that SAP already provided into the template. And here you can see all the different GL accounts that has been maintained for this particular exchange rate or account determination for exchange rate differences. And basically what needs to happen here is, let's say, for instance, if the business requires that a different GL account be maintained, it could be maintained into the screen by going and clicking into the new entries tab, or you can just investigate, just to make sure that the GL account that is going to be used for your exchange rate differences is already being maintained here. This is a very popular GL account. I don't know if you guys know it. This is the reconciliation account, GL account. And you can see that it has the profits, the gain, the loss one, the gain one, the adjustments, and so on and so forth. So let's say, for instance, you'll be making any payment and the system was going to determine that there's going to be an exchange rate differences. So it's going to be posted into this different account. So we can also copy this GL account right here. And we can go to FS00 transaction code. So here we can go use this particular screen. And I'm going to go to FS00. And there are other accounts as well, like the 2000000 output MWS account. This is a very important scenario to look at. This is for your output tax account. But more so, you can directly enter this GL account here and hit enter on your keyboard. And you can see this is your payable domestics. And this account is relevant for whenever you're ordering stock from the vendor, and it is relevant for all tax types that are allowed, be it input tax and output tax accounts. That's VST for input and MWS for output. And the most important thing here is just making sure that you have a good sense, you have a good understanding of the reason why, you need to make sure that your GL account is also maintained to the screen for exchange rate differences. Okay, and there's so many other accounts that are here. But again, this is something that, the finance people would need to be on top of. But as an SAP material management consultant, it is important for us to know in case the user runs into an error message and says whenever they were trying to create a purchase order and they're trying to receive the stock in, which of course, if there's an exchange rate configuration that has been set up, the system is going to trigger, an input tax via VST that has already been configured. But if certain GL accounts that are supposed to be tied to the exchange rates differences that needs to be posted for account determination is not set up here, it's most likely going to throw them an error message. So you can always use this OBA1 as a way to analyze and identify the root cause. And then you can always reach out to finance and ask if there's a reason why the GL account has not been maintained in here. In most cases, they would have to have had that GL account maintained in here so that the system can pick that GL account up automatically. And that's pretty much what we need to learn and understand mainly from this particular screen is that. And then we're going to go to the next screen. So another very important screen is going to be the OBBG. Now, OBBG is where we can assign the country to the tax calculation. And here you have the option of looking for locating the company country. So if the company's country is located in the US, you just want to make sure that the procedure is also maintained in here. Okay, so in this scenario here, this procedure is maintained FL01. So we can also notice here that FL01 is not the standard SAP provided. It seems like, I had somebody configure this into the system. In most cases, it's going to be the tax US. So here you have the tax US. So you can choose the tax US. And that's all you need to do. And then you're going to go ahead and hit save. And we can continue to save it into this customizing request. So you can see the country and the region procedure is tax US for US. And you can back out of that screen, and then the next transaction code is going to be FTXP. So within FTXP here, the system is needing the country or region. So we're going to keep it as US. And you can see that the tax code is broken down into a couple of groups. So from the other screen, we also saw the IO for the AP sales tax 0%. So we can also use this if the business, for example, is asking that we use the accounts payable sales tax as 0%. And there are also other options as the O0 for the account receivable sales tax of 0%. So let's just start with this one. And then you just need to click continue, and then it opens up into the screen. So here you can notice that we have the AP sales tax as 0. We also have all these other ones here, the VS1 and so on and so forth. So assuming the business is asking that we should keep this as, 0 here, and then the business is asking that for the tax 1, okay, for inventory should be set up to maybe like 2% or maybe like 5% or whatever the case may be. You can also maintain that information in here. And there's also a condition type that the system is going to be looking at for this particular scenario. I think there's a transaction code that will be important to call out here. We also have this OB40. OB40 is the way the SAP system can automatically post into that procedure for the tax US. And there are specific accounts that the system is going to be taking into consideration for the transaction. And you can see the account determination here is already automatic. So it's going to be looking at the MWS for output, tax, procedure, and it's also going to be looking at the VST, as you can see right here, which has to do with the input tax procedure. So the system is going to be making those posting in there automatically, right? That being said, we're going to keep this as 2%. And another thing again is you can go into the account tax or the tax account for your GL account YCOA, and you can see the GL account that the system is going to be making the posting into, okay, for any tax exchange rate or tax code, okay? So here you can also copy the GL account and we can go back to FS00. And what we're going to do is we're going to paste that GL account to see which account exactly the system is going to be making that posting into. So you can see here that the system is automatically going to be using the procedure to make the posting into this inventory reevaluation raw material. Now, let's say, for instance, the business does not want to use this GL account. Maybe they want to use a different GL account. So we're going to click into the drop down here. And we can also click continue here into the screen. And here you can click into the find binoculars glasses. And then you can just type a random tax. So we can see all the tax that has been maintained into the system. You can click plus to find again. So for example, this is an output tax, okay? So it also has a GL account that has already been maintained. So depending on the tax that the system is asking for you to maintain, you can always come here and find the tax that has been created, or you can reach out to the finance team since they're the ones responsible for creating GL account. However, it's also easy to create GL account, especially if you're practicing into the SAP system. It's going to be important for you to learn how to do some of those configurations. And again, if you're interested in joining our SAP Material Management and Finance integration training, please do well to follow me on LinkedIn. And my LinkedIn account is Henry Okon, and you can DM me, you can ask how you can be a part of that. I'll be more than happy to share all the details. Where I also train users on how to create FS 00, which is the transaction code to create GL accounts. So there you can also learn how to create GL accounts. It's actually very straightforward to create. So let's say, for instance, if there was no GL account here, that will be the best option for creating, this particular account that the system has already selected by default. You can create your own. Okay, so right here, I do not see what I was expecting to see was like, an input tax account, like this one, the VS1 account, where the system is looking at this VS1. But the system is not showing that to me. So let's say, for instance, I wanted to create a new one. I can copy from this original one and create a new account if that was the case that the business wanted. And then, of course, because we see here that the system is also reading the VS1, we can actually take this information out of here and keep it into the VS1 itself. And then we can keep this as 0 and you can hit enter. Okay. And so that's pretty much it. You can also go into the properties if you want to. And here you can also describe more information into the properties, whatever information you want to enter into the properties, you can also do that here. You can also rename the way this tax code is being called if you wanted to do that. So if I wanted to do that, I'm just going to say, okay, so if that's the business requirements, you can do that. And you can also deactivate certain lines. If you don't want certain lines to be active, you can deactivate certain lines in here. Okay, and that's pretty much it. You can hit save, and the tax code was saved. So let's say, for instance, you wanted to also look at the output tax. So we can go for O0, this one right here. And you can also click into continue. So here also you can go into the tax account and you can check your GL account. So you can see nothing's been maintained in here for the output tax. So let's say, for instance, and one thing you can also notice is you can see that the A here has to do with output tax, right? So we can also click into the drop down and see what does A mean. A means output tax and also V means input tax. So you can take note of this so that when you're being asked this during the interview, you can always explain it with confidence which tax is output. And output is basically the taxes that you pay whenever you sell stock to the customers of your company code. And then the V, input tax, has to do with the tax you have to pay whenever you create a purchase order and you're receiving the stock in. So this is a tax that you can claim from the government, and this is the tax that you need to pay to the government, okay? And here, if, for instance, the business is asking that you should maintain the AP sales tax here, so maybe you can say like also 2. And again, you can click into the tax account. You can see here the system is not picking up anything directly. So if it's something that you also need to maintain, you can also go maintain that into OB40, or you can maintain with a GL account, okay? But in this scenario, since we're just going to be creating a lot of purchase orders, we don't really have much issues to do with this. So we can just hit save, and the data was changed as well. So I've maintained both the input and the output tax for this scenario. Now we can also go to one last transaction code. So OBCL. So this is the transaction code to allocate company codes for non-taxable situations. So here I'm in the display mode. All I need to do in this scenario here is to look for my company code, but more so you can also see with the standard SAP provided transaction codes, you can see that the input tax here has the VO and then the output tax here has the AO. So it's either you use VO, AO, or you can use IO 0, O0, okay? So it really just depends on which category you're choosing to go for. It's either V or A or I and O, okay? It just really depends. So in this scenario here, I'm going to look for my company codes. So US 29 in this scenario, you can see that it's already assigned by default, and also the jurisdiction is also already maintained. Okay, so this way the system knows that whenever I'm creating a purchase order and I'm about to receive a stock in, it's going to come and look into my transaction FTXP and see what tax code was maintained and what tax configuration was set up for input tax. And whenever I start creating, outbounds, maybe through an STO, and I'm creating outbounds to other company codes, the system will also take that configuration into perspective. Okay. So that's pretty much what you need to know about that screen. Okay. So that way you can discuss that during the interview. I hope this video was helpful to you. And please do well to follow us on YouTube. You can turn on your notification bell, so that way when we release more videos and interview related questions like this, you'll be the first to be in the know. Thank you and have a good day.